And we really want to emphasize that we were able to get these awards because we really improved in our documentation. Since like for like almost whenever we will apply, like we always had to like, because at least we saw like showing like numbers and statistics like really made a huge difference. And yeah, and for the next slide, we have like the structure of the executive board. So the way that we have is the president, and then we have two different branches. We have the internal affairs branch, and then we have the external affairs branch. And under each branch, we have different positions, as you guys can see on the slide. And then like all of the chairs, they have like a different program committee, whether it's Shiptinas, membership, fundraising. And then like under the chairs, we also, other committees are open to our members so they can come to our events. And something that we really want to emphasize for the executive board, that at least with some, is that it all starts with the board. Like if you want like our chapter to be grown, like if we expect our members to be attending our events, the board members have to be there. Like we can, like at least like the way that we see it is that we cannot expect our members to go to an event if the board members are not there. And like also to highlight the familiar sense, to always show like that our executive board gets along. Was like hanging out, like talking to everyone, because we really think like our energy and our vibes, like it really passes to our members. And like if they see like, oh, we get along, like all of this, they really gonna want to run to be on board. Because I was like, oh wow, they're really cool people. I want to be like them. Yeah. So for the next slide, we're going to be talking about what 3 elements help our chapter grow exponentially, which are focusing on adding value, recruitment, and retention. We believe that adding value is really important because it helps you make sure that your programs and events are available for your members. Because I mean, like any chapter, like we can have like a lot of events, but like how are we gonna know like those events are actually worth it? Like it actually like that is actually worth our time to be doing these events. And recruitment, since that help us focus on underclassmen and new members, and retention for upperclassmen, new members, and board members. So now we're gonna have Israel talking about how to add value and how we did all of that.
Yeah, so to start, I've listened to a few of Maro's presentations, and he always kind of emphasizes how our SHPE chapters are kind of like a startup in the sense that, you know, we're working towards a goal and a mission. And I was recently reading a book called The Lean Startup, which focuses on, you know, how to get a startup up and running. And that I didn't read that to, you know, help our SHPE chapter, but now, you know, when I was preparing this presentation, I kind of realized, you know, how a lot of the points there are really important. So if you want to improve the state of your chapter, you kind of need to know, well, what areas to focus on, which can be a pretty tough question to answer. And you can't have a general answer to this. You know, we need to recruit new members, but that's kind of you need a little bit more of a concrete hypothesis. So to have like a better answer, you kind of want to collect more data on your members. So what we do is we distinguish our members into, you know, 2 different categories between like active members and paid members. So with our paid members, we collect data kind of, you know, asking general things about like GPA, major, class, stuff like that. So we use that to determine, you know, where our efforts need to be concentrated in. So we see that mechanicals are the biggest, I guess, like group of majors within our chapter. So we know that, you know, if we want to have like different companies and stuff, we really want to cater to those majors. Also, that can also lead you to, you know, having more concrete, oh, sorry, I don't know what that was, but, you know, more concrete hypothesis. And, you know, just to reiterate on this, they are just hypotheses. So if you have an idea, you know, you want to prove whether, you know, that's the right way to look at things. So we really use the CMT to generate SMART goals and address those informed hypotheses. And, you know, you really want to determine whether they are correct or not. And you can use that, you know, if you want to. One of my hypotheses this quarter was, you know, I really want to help our members network with companies themselves. So I have a few different events catered to that. And to determine whether they're effective, you know, I have surveys, post surveys to, you know, determine how successful that is. And this is some of the stuff that I really used on our corporate package last year when I created that. This is basically taken straight from our corporate package, and it really helped when networking with companies, just because when they asked for demographics of our chapter, I pulled up our corporate package. I showed them, you know, I made it as easy as possible to, determine what things are. And, that also helped me in getting sponsorships, just because, they saw it, they saw the numbers, they saw where our chapter was headed, and, they were just like, oh, send us this package, and, we can talk from that. So yeah, that's a little bit about that. It also helps you, recruit and retain members. So yeah, on to the next slide, Alondra. Yeah, so back in 2017, some of our members saw that the members of like our tech fields like CS and electrical, they needed to develop technical skills to land internships. So what they did, they got together, they created what we call our tech committee, which is a place for students to develop their technical skills and help the chapter by creating tools. So one of the things that recently what we did was we have a pen pal program, part of our SHPE committee, and basically, we connect to members, send emails back and forth anonymously. So what our tech committee did is they basically automated that process. So we have a spreadsheet with all the data. We created an app script with Google Scripts, and then just made the whole process a lot easier. So it was really a way to develop those technical skills, and it really helped our members gain internships. I think last year we had about like 10 of our 20 members gain internships. So we saw that it was a really good benefit for our members. And if we move forward to the next slide, stuff like this is how you want to empower your members. So we have different committees here. You can see a list of them. And what we really want to focus on is creating a community within each committee. So we see that our members are helping out our chapter, and we want to, reward them by, developing their leadership skills and stuff like that. So each committee has its own mission, and each event that it kind of generates and creates should address that mission. So we really want our committees to be, independent, and we see that a lot of them, the missions kind of overlap a little bit. So we want to make sure that none of them are, none of their events are overlapping. If they do, we can have them, collaborate with one another. So moving on to the next slide, I think that's Alondra.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to be talking about mentorship. This is a program that has really helped our chapter tremendously. And I actually thought it was really interesting how Vanilla, I believe we had two workshops on mentorship. We believe that mentorship is really important because it helps with recruitment for the mentees and retention for the mentors, since it has a value of giving back. Since I know like sometimes like when we're upperclassmen, like it's really hard for us to select on the club, since like since we're looking for like to spend like our network. And like even though having a mentorship program is really important, it can be hard sometimes to keep it active, especially because mentorship is not through socials, but the relationship of how mentors and mentees interact. And like here are some ways of what we have done and what we're going to do this year to keep our mentorship program active. Last year, we started implementing familias in our mentorship program. Before, it used to be individual pairs, and a weakness that we noticed is that if the mentor was not as active, the mentee will not come to the events. So we implemented familias, where each familia consisted of 3 to 4 mentors and 3 mentees. And we always try to have like a board member or an active member in each familia, since like usually like the active member or like the board member, like they always come to the events. And in order to show ways of how to spend time with your familia, every week we will have a team of the week. And every week it was different, from exploring new study spot on campus, going to Keller, etc. This year, we're gonna be implementing a mentorship bucket list, since we know that right now with the current situation, it can be really hard to find ways to hang out with you through mentorship. So we're doing this mentorship list, and like the list is gonna have like different items related to SHPE and our 5 pillars, from attend a community program with your mentee, bring your mentee to your senior design project, update your resumes together. And I personally think that this is gonna be a really good idea, especially since it's a way of the upperclassmen to get really involved in SHPE and like to also grow professionally and get closer to their mentors. And the next slide that we have is annual events. And I don't know if Albert is back on the call.
Yes, I disconnected for a bit. Thank you, Alondra, for taking over.
Of course.
But for annual events, so these are events that, like big key events that our chapter holds. And, obviously we have it delegated between different board members. The annual banquets a lot of times organized by collaboration with the social chair and the president and the executive branch, and then Brushship social chair. We got Ciencia, which is the outreach director, will organize, and then the VPE will do the alumni mixer. And I think these big annual events require a lot of planning, but the execution, and even if they're not as successful as expected, these events bring together a lot of your members. And these could be from alumni to people who aren't as active during the year, but that they see that your chapter isn't just doing the same smaller events that maybe other clubs in your school are doing, but that you're being ambitious and really trying to make an impact in your community, in your school, in your chapter itself, right? With alumni mixers, you're bringing back alumni that that has spent a lot of time in SHPE and are wanting to give back, and you're giving them the opportunity to come out and see students who were in their shoes a couple years back, and then providing that wisdom and just resources really to other freshmen or sophomores that are struggling to get their foothold in industry or something. And that really has an impact on and can really help make someone who's just casually interested in SHPE into someone who's going to be very involved for the rest of their career in their undergrad. So it's really key, and it's very difficult for small chapters, I understand, to make these large events, especially if you don't have sponsorship. But this is going to be what makes your chapter stand out. And this is something that's constantly an iterative process where you're going to be improving every year. But it does take that first step to really, organize these large events. But, the effort is always worth it at the end. And then I'll pass it on to the next slide.
So for this slide, we really want to talk about the importance of affiliations and collaborations. This is something that we really want to highlight, since we believe there are key factors for a chapter to grow, especially for small chapters, and to get your chapter name out there. We believe by doing collaborations, it can make a huge difference, especially when you're trying to plan a really big event. It helps you break down the tasks, and like the attendance is like, since you're collaborating with the Suite, OBSA, Hermanos Unidos, more people are gonna be coming out to your club. So like if you're like a really small club, like if you're ready to start your chapter, like by doing like collaborations, whether it's like LBSA, Hermanos Unidos, and other Hispanic organizations, that way like you're gonna be getting your SHPE chapter out there, and like it's really gonna help. It's really gonna help with recruitment. And we also believe that affiliations are really important. I don't know about other universities, but like we have like affiliations with like Engineering Student Council, Mesa Unida, the Latin Research Center, the campus of programs and activities. I believe that's COVP. And having all these affiliations, it was really beneficial, especially when things were in person, because like most of the time when you're affiliated with those organizations, you have perks with like free printing, reserving rooms, which I know right now it's not an issue. And like also like especially the letters of recommendation, when doing like that NRP and like applying to any awards, like by having these affiliations, it's like really easy to like get these letters. And also like if you keep like a really good connection, if like something happens and like your speaker like cancels like last minute, like by reaching out to them, like most likely they're gonna be able to help you, because at the end of the day, like these affiliations and like these other organizations, we're here to empower each other. So I'm gonna go on the next slide. Well, Albert's gonna be talking.
Okay, so you got a good summary of kind of all the different facets that SHPE UCI kind of provides resources and value to our members. And like Alondra said, in our history, we weren't always this big. We were maybe a third of what we are now just 5 years ago. And moving forward and thinking about your next steps is it's probably just as critical as all the planning you've done for the current situation your club is in. And our chapter, with all the data we collected, with all the feedback we get from our members, we're always improving. And whether this is on how we address the, the 5 pillars, how we provide professional development to our members, how to provide academic development, give them some guidance and mentorship to go into grad school or industry. These are always things that your chapter and every chapter struggles with, no matter from small to large, no matter how developed your chapter is. But know that there's always room for improvement. And while it won't always be perfect, that effort to just do slightly better than the year before is going to have this kind of butterfly effect where your chapter is going to, is moving in the right direction. In a couple of years, will be up there with the top players and the other really successful chapters. So, our chapter, at least, we're always thinking of our mission, always thinking about how our members are benefiting from our events. And like the value proposition is something to really think about in terms of, the programming you want to do for the year. And so, every quarter we kind of focus on a different goal, whether fall is more in terms of recruitment and kind of bringing up, events that give our members opportunities for getting jobs and internships or going and applying for grad school, to maybe more just purely professional development and just kind of giving them opportunities that if they didn't get an offer from a company, that they can still get experience so the following year they are a more competitive applicant. And none of this is very, this is all a team effort with your board to kind of figure out, where you guys are at, how much resources you can to make a new event, to organize new events. And, once you identify there's a need, right, you start planning out how you're going to execute it, and how you're going to address that need. And, SHPE UCI, we're constantly trying to, fill in the gaps of the needs of our members. And, with that, we got higher membership, more paid members, more corporate sponsors, more corporate partners. It comes along with all just the simple kind of mission of just being the best chapter, or being a club that provides the best resources, that has the best interests of your members in mind. And so, that's something that moving forward, just sticking to that mission, we are continuing to grow, and I know that your chapter will continue to grow as well. And really quick to add to that, naturally you'll develop new leaders, and that means your board members will continue to be, better and more prepared for their positions moving forward. And that kind of wraps up our presentation, and we'll be open for Q&A.
All right, thank you guys. We will move the presentation on to Miguel, and we will save our questions for after. We did get some, so we'll answer those later. So Miguel, whenever you're ready.
Hi everybody, so this is Miguel Angel from SHPE Oxnard College, and I will also be presenting on chapter operations. Really great presentation you see, Irvine, and thank you guys for passing it on to me now. All right, can everybody see the screen? Okay. All right, so chapter operations, I already introduced myself. All right, so that's a picture of me in case you guys don't know. And I'm currently the co-president of SHPE Oxnard College. This is actually my second term as co-president. My first term started in 2019 in the fall, and now it's 2020. Too bad everything's online and due to COVID, but we have to struggle. Here's a picture of us back before COVID struck back in January. And fun fact, I played mariachi in case you guys don't know. And if you guys went to Transfer Empowerment, we also hosted that. That was back in April 2019. And then I plan to transfer to UCLA after this year. Okay, so moving on. So before we continue, I kind of want to have a little points of reflections so everybody could kind of just think about where they currently stand. So I have a few questions for you guys. If you guys want to put something down in the chat, feel free to go ahead and do so, or just think about it in your head. But here's a few questions to think about. Doesn't matter if you're a small or a big chapter. Think about how smooth was your board transition from the past years to your current year right now. Was it a good one? Could have been better? You know, just think about that, because ultimately it does play a big role in how your chapter's board could end up being impacted. My next question is, do you receive support from your advisors? If you're receiving support from your advisors, then you're gonna be performing a lot better. If you don't, then maybe you're not gonna be receiving as much support and you're gonna be lacking in a few areas. Are you a big or small chapter? You know, it all depends. In our case, we're a small chapter because we're a community college compared to like UC or Irvine, where they're a much bigger chapter, they're a university. Do you have a complete board? Do you have, you know, just the minimum bare requirements, or do you have, you know, even more officers, directors in your board? Are you aware of paperwork and assignments you have to take care of? For example, the NRP or NCP that Mato talked about earlier, or maybe simply even just paperwork in your own, you know, school. And I'll talk a little bit about that, how in my first term as co-president, one of our downfalls was that we didn't turn in the paperwork as soon as possible. And that means if we don't turn that in, we can't be registered as an official organization on campus. And without that, we can't, you know, receive funds from the school. And because we turned that in late, that ended up, you know, not allowing us to go to nationals back in 2019. So if this is your first time, you know, serving on the board or being president, you know, just make sure you're aware of all the paperwork and the assignments you have to take care of, so then you don't end up happening with those mistakes. And then last but not least, do you have a platform for communication? Most of us probably use Slack, so I don't think there will be much of a problem there. But if you don't have one, then I'd suggest get on Slack or use emails or whatever fits best for you. Okay, so moving on, my first thing that I would want to talk about is if you're going to want your chapter to operate, you have to have your board stabilized. If you don't, then I don't think anything else is really going to function as well. So the first rule, everybody probably knows this, is communication. You do want to communicate properly. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to be having everybody perform at their best. Let's say I ask someone, oh, can you take care of this task? Okay, I'll get on it. And then I don't hear back from them until like I respond from them and like, hey, what's going on? And then, you know, it's got to be a constant basis, or if they're not even responding at all, then you just got to bring that to their attention. And that's what I want to get onto the next thing. You've got to establish rules and bylaws. If you already have them, great. If you need to change them up, or if you want to establish some new rules, you know, there's no problem with that too. You know, it's a complete new board and you can kind of shape it to the way you want it to be. And that's one thing I'll get onto later on in this presentation, is that things don't have to be strictly the same way as it was from the previous board. So I would say, you know, get things established in the very beginning of the year, so then you don't have things changing up towards the middle of the semester or, you know, in the middle of the year. Set deadlines. If you don't set deadlines, we all know what happens if you don't set deadlines. Things end up getting pushed back farther. I have a little story about deadlines. My first semester as I was a president, our VP of fundraising, he was supposed to take care of a task where he was going to talk to a restaurant so we can have a fundraiser. And we would always say, oh, take care of it, but we wouldn't set a deadline. So he would always say, okay, I'll do it. Then the next board meeting comes. What's going on? Oh, I'm about to start it. I'll get to it. Then the next board meeting comes. What's going on? Oh, I'm about to start. And so you see that same thing happens until we reach the end of the semester where nothing ended up happening. So I'd say setting deadlines is so important. It's probably one of the things I have learned the most about being as a co-president. And yes, you got to treat things like a business. My advisor always says, you know, even though this is a school organization, or you know, you got to kind of treat it like a business. It's going to prepare us into the real world, how things are run. And if, you know, someone's failing to do something, or, you know, is not performing properly, then there's got to be some disciplinary action. There's different forms of disciplinary action you can take. Obviously, you know, just talk it with them, or, you know, if it really has to come down to, you know, impeaching, but, you know, I would say talk first, and give them a warning, like, hey, I would appreciate if you would have put more effort into doing this, or, you know, simple, just talking things out is probably the best way to take disciplinary action in the chapter. And of course, split tasks evenly. You don't want to have, you know, your secretary doing all the work, or your co-president doing all the work, you know. And honesty is the most important thing. Like I said, for disciplinary action, if you want to, you know, talk with them through, you got to be honest. You can't just sugarcoat things. Just, I don't like that you're doing this, or maybe even say you like that you're doing this, so that, you know, they at least know what you like happening in the chapter. And last but not least, if you do want to have the stable executive board, make sure you do incorporate some of that friendship and familia vibe into it. You know, have like those socials just dedicated for the board, or, you know, keep everything like alive, you know, just some fun things. Because it is important to treat it like a business, but, you know, in the end, we're all friends, and, you know, you don't want to have everybody be all tense because you're trying to be on everyone's back. Okay, and here's going to be another reflection slide for you guys, and this will possibly, you know, you'll relate to this one, hopefully. And I want you to think about, what other leadership positions have you been in aside from SHPE? Okay, so this could be, we could be talking about either high school, back, you know, you could be in a group in high school, maybe a different type of club or organization on your campus. It could be anything for church, work, band, music groups. I heard someone in my first breakout room say that they are also in a music group, and that kind of helped them out in their presidency and SHPE. Or even sports. You know, if you were a leader in one of these groups, how can you implement these leadership skills into your SHPE chapter? What worked for you, what didn't? And if maybe you weren't the leader of this group, but you were a part of it, then what did you like about the leadership in that particular group, and what didn't you like? What were some things that stood out to you, and what change would you have liked to see? So I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of time just to kind of think those through, and then I'll continue on to the next slide. Okay, now I'll be moving on. Okay, so what I'll be talking about is recruitment. I know during these times of COVID, it's really impacted us regarding recruitment, and it's a lot more harder than it would have been in person. So just wanted to give a little insight into recruitment and what we have done in our chapter for Officer College. Is first thing is word of mouth. couldn't get any more obvious than that. But yeah, simply talking it through. You know, if you still happen to see any people, you know, in person, you know, just tell them about the chapter. If you don't see anybody in person and you stay at home, then, you know, tell your siblings. If your siblings are gonna, you know, be going to college, you know, tell them about it. Or if they're still in high school, and if they're gonna be wanting to pursue engineering, then tell them, you know, come and check out our chapter. I don't know if you guys have already done that, or if you have siblings, or even cousins or anyone in your family, you know. And then, of course, the next thing is social media, probably one of the easiest things right now, Alondra. So yeah, make sure to, you know, be active on your chapter Instagram. But one of the things I think about is that if your chapter has an Instagram, most of the people following it will probably be already people who are in SHPE. So that's why I also put, make sure to include it on your personal. So then people that you know on your personal will be like, hey, what is this about? Or hey, can I join? I actually had, our chapter had a guest speaker from the Navy back in the beginning of this month. And I had someone who was attending another university. He was a friend of mine in high school, and he told me, hey, can I come to this event? And I said, sure. So like things like that will end up happening if you share it on social media. Whether if it's even just a general meeting, social, it doesn't matter. And of course, create flyers. The more attractive things are, the more people are going to be inclined to attend them. And then of course, there's a few people that you can ask for regarding recruitment. And those are your advisors, your counselors, professors, your student government. Tell them all, like, if they could recruit him. If you guys have made a flyer, like, tell them to share it. For professors, share them with your class. Counselors, if they get, engineering students or any STEM students, talking to them, maybe they might end up referring to you. And the thing about our chapter is one of our advisors is actually a counselor on campus. So whenever he gets an engineering student, he always ends up giving them my number. And then I end up talking to them, and then I make them join in. And if you want to keep things, organized, use Google Forms for them to, like, put the info and then put it on a spreadsheet. That'd be really helpful, keeping all that data in. And classroom presentations, although I know that's more ideal, doing in person, but if you still do live lectures, through Zoom for your classes, you could possibly ask your professor, hey, can I have like 1 minute at the end of class or at the beginning of class, and then just kind of announce yourself just kind of quickly. And that's probably the easiest way you can get the word out there. And of course, be as inclusive as possible. Just because we're Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers doesn't mean it's only for Hispanics or for professionals or for engineers. So, be as inclusive as possible. I remember when we were doing our vision statements in ELA, a lot of people were emphasizing that, diversity and inclusiveness. And I think it's really, really good thing because, people are always looking to, join clubs and get that feeling of community and that familia sense. Okay, and then moving on to that is retention. And what I like to say is I like to put engaging over informative. Yes, it is really important to be informative in your things, your meetings and activities, but I think it's more important to be engaging more than anything. If you're not engaging, then maybe you might be losing interest in some people. For example, let's say you recruited 20 people this semester, and over time you start to see that those 20 people, it's only like 10 of those people like halfway through the semester. Like, where did everyone else go? And it's kind of impossible to maintain everybody in there. But I mean, if you start to see that you're losing more people, then you got to kind of step back, think about what you can do to keep those people attracted. I know back in person, a lot of people were attracted to pizza, but too bad we can't really do that right now. So what our chapter proposed is that we're only doing one general meeting per month, and then the rest of the things we do the rest of the things we do the month are socials and activities, whether it be just simply a bingo game or a workshop that we have, resume workshop, just things that they can feel more engaged about doing. Or you could even incorporate these into your general meetings and just make those general meetings like that. But I feel like my advisor would always say make sure you're doing engaging stuff. My first semester as co-president, I didn't really do that as much, and not a lot of people would come to the meetings, or it was very difficult to maintain. And it wasn't until my last meeting where I decided to do a presentation slide, but after every slide I did some kind of like little activity or a little reflection kind of thing. And a lot of people really loved that meeting, and they said, we should have more of these. And that's why, in my presentation here, I have you guys kind of like reflecting on some things. And I would say, use that. And it really gets people, thinking, really makes people feel more involved at your meetings. And then, of course, talk about scholarships and internships. Who doesn't want to hear about opportunities? Bring guest speakers. If people really want to hear about someone from this certain company, or if they're interested in this specific area, field of engineering, then, bring guest speakers related to that. And of course, partner with clubs and organizations. I think UC Irvine mentioned this, but if you really want to, get things out there, especially since SHPE focuses on professionalism, maybe you can partner up with a club that focuses more on hands-on kind of stuff. And then you can kind of mix up the two, like professionalism and, hands-on projects that you guys can do. And it also helps recruit. You can get some people from their club, and their club can get some from yours. So it's a win-win situation there. All right, so things to watch out for. So these are my little warnings I kind of give to you guys, and I'll talk about how these ended up affecting us. So don't strive for perfection. I know a lot of us can sometimes be like, oh, it's gotta be 100% accurate. It's gotta come out this way. And then if it doesn't come out this way, then we think that, oh, we're terrible leaders, or we're a terrible club. And it happens. Sometimes it happens to me. My first term as a co-president wasn't the most smooth, I'll be honest, but it made me learn so much about how to be a chapter leader. And so, don't always think that everything's gonna come out perfect. Not all your events are gonna come out. And in case something happens, don't be afraid that, that it's a bad thing for having to step away from not doing an event or an activity. If you guys attended the SHPE Transfer Empowerment Day back in 2019, that was the previous board. That wasn't the board that we currently have right now. And we were so focused on doing that eventually, things didn't go the way it was because our board wasn't as stabilized when we first started. And then we just decided, it'd be better if we just focus on getting the board stabilized first, instead of focusing on these big events that probably will be really difficult to do if we do them. And then see what happens. COVID would have stopped that anyway, so I don't know how luck turned out, but just think about those things. And that's what gets on to my next bullet point, is that copying the previous board, you don't have to copy everything that they did. I mean, it's good, keep some traditions and everything, but if they told you, oh, you gotta act this way, or you gotta do this, or else, you're gonna break, the way the SHPE chapter is supposed to run, you add your own unique flavor to the chapter. So I would say, establish the rules. If you have to change up some stuff in the Constitution, that's how you do it. But don't be an exact copy from the previous board, because everyone's different. Another thing to watch out for is personal issues, whether it's your own or if it's someone else on your board. We got to kind of think into consideration that everybody has different situations going on in their lives. And so if someone says, I have to step back, then you got to be really understanding. Or even if it's yourself, if you're having something really like terrible going on, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I have to step back. I might not be able to continue doing this, but I'll be able to help out, when everything gets better. And especially right now during the times of COVID, things are getting a lot difficult for some people. So aside from that, if you guys are going to continue, then don't watch out for taking on tasks by yourselves. If you do, otherwise you're going to get really overwhelmed. Especially, everybody who's attending here, I'm assuming that you guys have to work on the NCPs, the chapter management tools and all that. Ask for help from your board. That's why, you have all the other ones to help you out there, and don't end up doing everything by yourself like the last 2 days before you have to submit it. And avoid paying out of pocket. This is something that might happen to some people is, you know, especially right now with Zoom, you don't want to be paying for Zoom by yourself, because I'm pretty sure your advisors might have those accounts already because they have to use them. So make sure to ask for help from, you know, advisors or any staff that might be able to help you with that. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be using a lot more money, and some people, you know, might barely be hanging on to the job that they're working on. And last but not least, watch out for responsibility and behavior, because you guys are representing SHPE as a whole. SHPE National, we're representing, you know, professional, we're representing engineering, and, you know, Hispanics. We're representing our countries. And it's just really important that, you know, we're always on our best, especially at our meetings. You know, we want to be a role model to those general members that attend our activities. And especially if professionals are also there, they're going to see what kind of chapter we are, depending on our responsibility and behavior. All right, chapter growth. And then I think this is my last slide. And for chapter growth, you know, we all want to grow as a chapter. I don't think anyone wants to make our chapter grow smaller. So one thing I want to say in regards to your board is give opportunities for other board members. You know, let them lead meetings. Let them be the next ones who lead the board meetings, not just be the presidents all the time. Or even if it's your socials or your activities, your general body meetings, you know, give more opportunities for your board members to be able to talk, have them practice your public speaking skills, and just in general, you know, and that goes back to like the whole splitting the tasks thing. So that'd be really great if you can give more opportunities for your board members if you aren't doing so already. And invite general members interested in leadership positions to your board meetings. That's going to help a lot, especially if you're planning on transferring out, if you're planning on graduating already, if you're in university. In our case, that's what we have to do, because I know I'm going to be transferring out, and about 60% of my board is also going to be transferring out after this year. So we're looking into people who might be interested in leadership positions. And of course, continue to get feedback from general members. They are basically the driving force of SHPE. Without them, then I don't know what we would be doing. So make sure to get continuous feedback from the general members, see what they want, what maybe they're interested in doing more of, whether it be, you know, workshops, or socials, or maybe more general body meetings. But it is important to get feedback from general members and kind of close that gap between the board and general members, so it could be more, you know, united. And of course, share ideas between other SHPE chapters or clubs on campus. You know, if I want to get some ideas from Alondra regarding her marketing, because she's really great, you know, then I can always ask her to have my marketing officer, you know, talk with her. Or even if it's simply within clubs on campus, you know, talk with them, see how they're doing things, and, you know, collaborate. A lot of this is about collaborating. And now with this virtual environment, we could basically collaborate with anyone, even despite if they're far away. And I think that will be it from me. So this concludes my presentation. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them down in the chat, or yeah, I will give this back to Chloe now.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Miguel, and thank you again, UCI. So we do have several questions. The first one is from Gabriel Pulido. So he says, something our chapter wants to improve is the communication between officers and members. How do you guys communicate with your chapter, or how do you guys communicate chapter, wait, sorry, I can't read apparently. How do you guys communicate your chapter operations with members to be transparent? Does that make sense?
I can answer that question. So what we do to be transparent for our members, we send weekly newsletters. So that's like the secretary, I mean, like that was the director of marketing chef last year, and I was like the secretary. So every Monday at 8 a.m., like a newsletter for like that includes all the events of the week and like all the opportunities. It includes that. And also our Instagram is like our, last year it was like a main part of communication. So like when there was like an event happening, like we will post their posts, Instagram stories, and something that we use a lot that we know chapters don't use as much is our Facebook group. So our Facebook group is like super active. Like during the school year, we have like at least 5 posts per day. So what we do is that if we have like 4 committees for like in a day, like the committee lead like always post like post a reminder like, oh, hello guys, make sure to come out to like the shiftiness meeting. And something that we used to do that we kind of stopped doing, we also post like recap posts. So we started doing that more on Instagram. So we could highlight, yeah, we're having all of these events, and then since we know everyone's like come out, that way they can see like what they missed out. So we used to do that on Facebook and Instagram, but last year we started to focus like more on our marketing on Instagram. So on Facebook we just do reminders and no recap posts, and on Instagram we do recap posts and reminders, and on the weekly newsletters we have both. So that's how we try to be transparent with our members. And like another way is by our committee meetings. We have like Shiftinas, professional committee, events planning committee, the shadowy program, open board meetings. So that's like our way of being transparent to our members and giving them a voice, so we can empower them and like, so there's like the next generation of leaders. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Alondra. So our next question is from Jamie Portillo. And their question is, do you partner with other organizations in your campus to provide workshops that develop technical skills, or are these subgroups within the SHPE chapter that organize those workshops?
I can go ahead and answer this one. So when I referred to another when I refer to another campus organization, like for example, a hands-on kind of thing, because this is what I'm kind of getting at. One of the other clubs that we collaborate with is called Engineering, Math, and Physics, and they like to do more like hands-on technical kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it's kind of harder doing things in person. So what they're kind of deciding on doing is doing some kind of coding stuff. And so maybe that's one of the things that you can do. But no, it's not a subgroup within our chapter, but it would definitely be another club that we're collaborating with. So they're really looking into doing some coding kind of workshops.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So ours is kind of interesting, kind of a combination, I want to say, because, you know, SHPE, first and foremost, we focus on professional development, academic development, you know, in terms of the outreach and stuff. But we don't, technical projects is something that we strive to do, but isn't necessarily like our first priority all the time. So our chapter is a kind of an interesting situation in the sense that we have a tech committee. So this was an initiative started about, I think, 3 years ago by a past president. And so we have, it's for specifically more CS majors and very programming heavy. And what that committee kind of evolved into was a lot of technical programming projects and some minor, smaller hardware projects. So that organization, that's our committee within SHPE. And that's kind of like where, you know, if you want programming experience and maybe there's some small projects under your belt, you know, that's a committee to go to. In terms of just more engineering projects, we don't have like something like a race car that, you know, SHPE is in charge of, or Rocket or something, you know, like the other larger senior design groups in our campus. So, but we do sometimes do like meetings where you invite, you know, project managers from other, you know, the large senior design projects on campus. And this could be from mechanical to civil engineering to electrical. And they kind of pitch their projects to our members, and they can, you know, talk. And then afterwards, they have a booth and they can talk to our members, and the members can learn more about what their project's about. So it's a bit of both. We try to integrate it more into SHPE, just because that way we retain our members a little bit more. But at the end of the day, our mission is to give, in addition to all the professional development that SHPE has to offer in networking, still have the technical hands-on experience that they need on their resume, when they go to a career fair or an interview. So in that, we kind of do more in terms of outside collaborations. So I hope that kind of helped. It was more like, I'm just kind of giving you what our chapter is doing at the moment. But
to add a little bit onto that, we also partner with different corporate partners to do workshops. So a big one for us is Google. Our tech program manager had requested a few workshops from them, focusing on using their app scripts as well as Google Analytics. So our members requested that, and that's some of the workshops we're looking at. So yeah, corporate partners, they also can do technical workshops. So that's what we're leveraging.
Great, thank you guys. So we do have more questions. The next one is from Juan Banch. How do you ensure mentors with such little experience difference are effective for newer members? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I can try to answer that question. So the way that I see it is that every mentor brings something different to the table. Like maybe like they might have like experience like in other organizations like outside of SHPE. Maybe they're really involved in SHPE. Maybe like they have like a lot of internships. So like I see like every mentor like even like if you're a third year and you don't have that much experience, like I feel like you can show them what you learned and like what will you do different. So I feel like that's why we also started like the familias concept, where like it's like instead of like individual like pair of mentor to a mentee, it's like a familia for like that consists like from 3 to 4 mentors and like 3 mentees. So that way like we can really make sure that all the mentees are getting the most, and like we try to like balance like the familia stuff. Like okay, like let's put like a board member in each familia. Let's put like someone like that it's not as involved in SHPE, but like they can learn like more from senior designs. So like that's like the way that we do it. But like I feel like regardless of your experience, you can be an amazing mentor. Because I mean you can really say like what you have done differently. And like I'm pretty sure like that will be like really beneficial for like a lot of people.
Thank you, Yolanda. So we have one final question. If you guys have more questions, please send them in. Our next question is from Leo Soto. When should leadership begin to engage with potential future leaders?
I think that's something that could be started as early as their freshman year. I think when we were talking to Mato, he mentioned how other chapters have like freshman leaders, and that's something we've been looking to implement. We haven't done that yet, but I think, as early as freshman year is something that could be started. That's when I started looking at leadership. So I know other freshmen that are super, interested in SHPE and really want to have, gotten a lot out of it and want to get back in the future. That's when they look to do that stuff. So I think freshman year is a good time to start.
On behalf of community colleges, it's kind of harder. I would say as earlier as possible. It's kind of unpredictable sometimes because you don't know who's going to be leaving already and who is going to be staying for another year. But I would say like, as early as possible, just look at who's showing up for your meetings, who's constantly being active. Otherwise, it's going to be a little difficult to kind of predict who's going to be staying, just because it's a short time period and it really is unpredictable in community college.
Yeah, to adapt to that, elections happen because I mean you see it in the quarter system. So elections always happen at the end of winter quarter. So like at least the way that I see it is like during fall quarter, like other committees, like members can come out to committees, and then like we really focus on leadership, on like making sure that we have like the next generation of leaders during winter quarter. That's when we have like the shadowy program. So technically like it's like a program where like members are able to apply like which board member they come like the high school visits for marketing. They help do like social media projects, and we also have open board meetings, so that way like we can really guarantee like that people are gonna run for positions, because I feel like that's like that I feel like that's really important, because like if people don't run to be on board, it's really hard, it's really easy for a chapter to die off. And like even like if people run, but like they were not able to like shadow you, they won't know like what you knew. Because like I feel like sometimes like we know stuff, but like it's like common sense to us. So I feel like by having like shadowy program and like open board meetings, like or like oh, the NRP is due January 15, like at least like for me that's like stable in my brain. But like for like a new board member, like they won't know that. So I feel like these programs are really important. And like also I feel like messaging members personally, like at least like I really believe like when you message someone like oh say like oh you know like I see like a lot of potential in you, you should apply to be a board member. Because that's what happened to me, like me seeing like someone else sees like a potential in me, that can go a long way. So like, I really feel like when elections come around, like if you saw like a member, like especially if they're like really shy, when you message them personally, like that really makes a huge impact. So I feel like by doing that, having like a shadowy program, open board meetings, and like always being open and transparent, that's how you empower like that next generation of leaders.
And just really quick, as more like just towards just purely being a mentor, don't make it seem like you have to be the perfect candidate to be a mentor. You know, your members who are like juniors and above, they've been in school for a while. They've learned and seen, you know, what it takes to be successful. And, you know, like sometimes that's all it really takes to just give your mentee just some advice. Like you telling them to go to nationals can change their life, right? And you don't have to be a successful 2 internship straight A student as a mentor to just be able to recommend your someone to go to a career fair or a convention. Like all your members have some form of advice and wisdom that they can provide your sophomores and freshmen. So don't focus so much on the perfect mentor. Just more, if anything, that they're passionate about SHPE, because that'll keep they'll keep bringing out their mentees to events and things, and hopefully, you know, at least put them on the right track to achieve their goals.